So, welcome to a brand new season of the Me and ADHD podcast. And in this first episode, we'll be talking about turning challenges into a positive impact. And for this to happen, I've got a very busy person coming on, basically. I'll be having a conversation with UK presenter, DJ, motivational speaker, and he also runs You, Me and ADHD. We're not linked. You, Me and ADHD,
Not
which is a
yet.
voluntary school. Yes, absolutely. It's a voluntary schools and community campaign raising awareness around ADHD, mental health, self-acceptance, and resilience through honest, real-world storytelling. Wow. Okay, so welcome, extremely busy guy, Ryan Swain. How you
Hello,
doing?
thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm really good. Really happy to be here. It's great to get on these podcasts, get on these talks, getting raw and real about something which has had a profound resonance in all our lives, I think, and that is
Yeah.
ADHD. So, yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's good to have you here. It's good to have this conversation, especially the first episode of the new season. So, now, for those of us who've got ADHD, it is viewed differently depending on their own experiences of life and their presentations. Some will say it's a disorder. Others will agree on it's a disability. Others will say it's a superpower to them or has helped them achieve incredible things. Now, I think when it comes to ADHD and other neurodivergent conditions as well, I think how we view it should always be an opinion on yourself, your own presentations and your own world and your own experience, rather than a sweeping opinion that neglects experiences of everybody else. For instance, let's just say, I find my ADHD totally disabling. It has a negative impact on all areas of my life. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 51. But I would never tell you or anyone else that you should view it the same way. If you are loving your ADHD and you've really worked on it and worked it out and you find some really positive things and you're living life to the full, brilliant. That's your experience, that's your life, and, fair play to you. But I do think for everybody, finding the positives is key. As much as I haven't enjoyed mine, up until I got sort of diagnosed and became more aware of what's going on, that's made a big impact on my life. And I think being positive about it and finding what it can do for you or what you can do for it is a key for everyone. It's what we should strive for, really. So turning that negative that we might have experienced before into a more positive outcome is definitely the way forward in my mind. So what do you think? What do you think about that? I mean, did you find that yourself? Because you're
I
late
think you
diagnosed
picked
as
the
well.
right person for this podcast, if I'm truthfully honest, Darren. However, yeah, I try and view ADHD impartially and neutrally, like you say, just because it presents itself differently in every person. And like you say, what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for the next.
Yeah,
I do try and give life hacks and advice, things that have worked for me, basically, I put out there. And it's for the everyday person, the next person in the line to have a go and see if it works for them. There's no guarantees it's going to. That's not what I'm saying. But I do believe, like I said to you before we started recording, I think ADHD presents itself differently in real life situations and circumstances to what it's supposed to look like on paper. On paper, it's,
yeah,
all these things, all these statistics, all these words, but how they sort of concoct into your everyday life, like you say, it can be a really negative thing. I try and highlight the positives, but also equally highlight the negatives as well. And I'm not one of these people that are purely fixated on just talking about the positives. We lay it bare, we go deep into the wound, and we reveal basically everything that's happened through a lived experience in my life, all the negative things that it's done for me, and for millions of other people all over the world. I do think if it is harnessed correctly and it's under the right control, and it's used correctly, it can help you. It can be perceived, it's seen as a superpower. However, if it isn't harnessed correctly and under control, it's like say going to have a massive negative, detrimental impact on your life, and not just your life, but your family's life, your
Yeah.
colleagues' life, everybody around you, basically. And it follows you everywhere you go. The way that I sort of explain this to young children is when I go into classrooms or go into assemblies or conferences, I basically say to people that are listening to me, I ask them a question, which is, what is a tornado and what does a tornado do? And quite oftenly, hands will shoot up. Unless you have ADHD, of course, you just blurt out the answer impulsively. It's extreme weather. It's extreme. It's dangerous. Causes havoc. Causes chaos. Causes carnage. Causes destruction. In some extremes, can cause death. Now, ADHD and tornadoes are very similar things, in my opinion, purely because they're both natural occurrences. Nobody asks to be these labels. Nobody asks to be ADHD. We're born like it. It's a neurobiological condition. We don't ask to have it. It just happens chemically in our brains when we're born and brought into the world. Same with a tornado. It comes down naturally and it has a massive impact in the wrong environment. However, if you picked up the tornado, placed it at sea, yeah, it might cause a bit of a tsunami, depending how far back you put it. But if you put it in the right environment, which is in front of a wind farm with wind turbines, that's going to create a lot of energy. It's going to create a lot of power. It's going to do a lot of good. It's going to save lives. So there's pros and cons there, positives and negatives. Again, it's all to do with being in the right environment and having it under the right control. And unfortunately for you, like you've mentioned, sadly, you've had a very negative experience with your ADHD, and you speak for millions of other people around the world. It's not always been easy for me, and I think it's easy for people to sit on the sidelines and judge my life because I do all these things. I'm a creative person. I've got an aurora. I've got energy, and I've got enthusiasm. I show enthusiasm with everything that I do. That's something that I've always had from being a small child, and I can't help that. That's just me being me authentically. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
portray anything different. I'm just being myself. And if people can't accept that, then that's their issue. However, the talks and what we were originally talking about, I do think people need to be more open-minded and more accepting around these conditions. I just think at the moment, even people with ADHD or neurodivergence are turning their frustrations, their negative experiences, their anguish almost into each other. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I think well, using the tornado, I quite like that, to be fair. And if you look at pictures and videos of tornadoes from a distance, they're beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. ADHD people are beautiful people. You know, that they have gifts that they don't know they've got. Like I say, it's all to do with being in the right environment. If you place somebody with ADHD in the right environment, it's like yourself. If yours had been picked up from you know your youth, your adolescence, things might have been different. And I think that's why there's such a strain on the system at the moment, because people are starting to recognize and realize things that have gone before them, the negative impacts that it's had in their life. That's the reason why, you know. And then obviously when you get to a certain
Yeah.
age, I mean, I like to believe that you're never too old to learn or achieve anything. You can do that at any age. But obviously when you start getting a bit older, you start thinking, wow, I've wasted all these years. You know, I could have, if what could have been almost. And I think that's
Yeah.
why what I'm doing at the moment, the You, Me and ADHD campaign, the talks, the workshops, do it all voluntarily. There's no ulterior motives other than trying to get into the education system and basically trying to make young people understand not just what ADHD is, but what neurodivergence are, and how they can affect your life if they are not self-recognized by yourself and other people, and harnessed and used in the right environment. Because many people have gone through school, through education, through occupations and things, and ADHD has followed them into those things and reaped havoc, reaped chaos. And then obviously it has that impact on your life, because you're always wondering why things go wrong. Why can't anything work out for me? Why can't I keep a job down? Why can't I be friends with everybody? And you're
Yeah,
constantly questioning yourself almost. So yeah, I think it's really important that we get in to the education system and we start making young people understand what ADHD is. There's many young people that have heard of ADHD but don't understand it. Like, there's also a lot of young people that have ADHD, and I love that transparency and that honesty when I ask them. When we're very raw, we're very open and honest with each other. I ask, if is there anybody in the room with ADHD, and hands will go up. Um, but they don't understand what ADHD is. It's all right having these conditions, but unless you understand what the condition is, then
yeah,
there's methods you can use to make things better for you, I think.
absolutely.
Brilliant.
Cool, but you're absolutely right what you said. Because if I look back on where I was before the diagnosis, it was a very well,
Sorry.
didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on, as you know, a lot of other people. And if I can implement what I implement now with the knowledge I have now and the support I have now back into my earlier days, things would
Yeah.
be massively different. So
Absolutely.
so getting people
Absolutely.
early and learning about it and what you can do to help support yourself, to advocate for yourself, the strategies that you can use, um, and also, the expectation of the strategies as well. What the expectation of the outcomes. It's not going to completely and utterly change overnight and everything's going to be perfect, but it's a way forward and it can make a massive, massive difference.
Of
So,
course,
so
like you say, them strategies, like you say, sort of educating yourself on them. I think it's okay educating yourself on them, but you have to try to put them into practice as well.
yeah,
And obviously, if it's easy to sit and read something, but actually doing it are two different things. It's exactly like ADHD, as we've mentioned. Like how ADHD, how you perceive it on paper and how you perceive it in real life are totally two different things.
yeah.
So, but yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about you then. So
Yeah.
when were you diagnosed then?
So I was diagnosed quite late on. Well, I say late on. I was diagnosed at 22, um, and basically my life before my diagnosis was carnage. It was chaos. Um, but I've never had any. There's no malice in me. I'm not a bad person. I'm just a very misunderstood person. I have a big energy. I do find tasks challenging in everyday life, which most people, neurotypical people, would find pretty straightforward. But then obviously harder tasks would present themselves to me and I would find them quite straightforward, whereas I would always do things the hard way rather than the easy way. Um, I think from a young age, from being born, I was born with a heart defect called a patent arterial ductus. So basically, when you are born, you have a valve that should close.
Yeah,
Mine stayed open. Now, normally it's picked up straight away for some unknown reason. Um, Mine wasn't picked up till I was 4 and nearly dying. So when it was picked up, I had like a few weeks to live. So I had to have major heart surgery, which saved my life, completely transformed my life. Not just gave me a second chance at life and presented itself how precious it is to me, but it also made me realize I've been granted a second chance. Not everybody gets that second chance. So
yeah,
let's try and make the most of it. Even from age 4 or 5, I've had that mindset. I mean, I remember it vaguely, but I just know that that's always been embedded into me, basically. Um, when I started school, primary school reception, remember the first day, all the other children were sat around the table, listening to the teacher. basically doing whatever the teacher asked. I found that incredibly difficult. Couldn't sit still, wanted to be up all the time. And like I said, even before that, before I started school, when I was really poorly, really sick, I didn't present myself as a sick child, not just to nursery or school, but family members, family friends, people socially didn't see that I was sick, that I was dying, that I had a heart defect, because my behavior, the way I presented myself through ADHD, made people see and think otherwise, because I had, like I said, lots of energy. I was impulsive, couldn't sit still, restless, barely slept. Um, Daydreaming, forgetful. I used to swing from curtain to curtain like Mowgli at the Jungle Book, like Tarzan on a vine. That was me in the living room. I was climbing up things, rocking on chairs. I just could not stop. And I didn't understand from being a youngster. I didn't understand what that was, why I was like that, why I couldn't just shut off. And I think as I gradually got older into primary school, I started, like many ADHD people do, start questioning themselves, getting inquisitive. Why can't I just be like everybody else in the classroom? When the teacher asks a question, why can't I just put my hand up like everybody else? Why do I blurt out the answer? I don't want to do that, but it just does it. Um, and things like that continued through my education. And I really found it really difficult. I just found it really, really distressing, really challenging. Because I'm a very proactive person, and I used to love playing team sports, but team sports didn't love playing with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I say, that word expectations, the expectations were huge, even from a small age. Playing football with your friends in the, school, in the team and things, nobody wanted to be on my team, not because I wasn't a good player or wasn't athletic enough. It was because I couldn't focus and I got distracted easily. And I would not just get distracted easily, but I distract other people easily. And I was quite flippant. I didn't take things very seriously. And I think that's had a massive impact on my life, because it's followed me through consistently from birth to childhood to adolescence to adulthood. And here I am now, sat with the same problem sometimes. Um, I've just got a little bit better at reining in my attention, shall we say, and I try and concentrate harder. And you can always try. I think we live in an era where nobody wants to try. That's the problem, and everybody wants to get good at something overnight. And if they don't get good at something overnight, then it's not worth doing. Which ADHD is a lifetime of channeling and
Yeah.
self-discipline and harnessing these qualities, but can also be hindrances, like I said at the beginning, if they're not in the right environment almost. So
Yeah. It's amazing how much of an impact what you go through as a child at school, sit still and concentrate, try harder, um you you got to focus better, all these kind of sort of conversations, all these things that told you time and time again as a child, it follows you through to adulthood. We remember,
absolutely.
I mean, for people who struggle with memory, we remember those things. um and it can have a devastating effect on a lot of people's self-worth, self-esteem, and can completely mold their life if that's all they've got to hold on to, is all the negative things that have been thrown at them all the time. um but like, as you get older, you're finding your way. You find that the strategies to be put in place, the things that will help you understand what you're actually good at, and why, and why you're not good at certain things. Have that understanding can help you direct yourself, into a better sort of environment, into a better, I don't know, a way of viewing your life, and life choices as well. If you know that you excel at things that you are really interested in, you know,
Exactly.
You will find those things
Exactly.
that you're
That
really interested.
hyperfixation is really
Yeah,
important. And I say this to young people. You have to find something that you can hyperfixate on and just throw yourself in 110%. And yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. You have to try lots of different things. You have to fail at lots of different things to achieve lots of different things. But like you say, once you find your things that you are interested in, an ADHD person, irrelevant to what their person will give you 110%. They will do it. And that's exactly what I've done. And we'll go on to talk about more. We'll go on to talk about things which I've become hyperfixated on and have saved my life and taught me everything about life skills and etiquette and everything that goes on a day-to-day basis. I didn't learn any of that in school,
yeah.
in the education system. I didn't learn any of that at any activity clubs outside of school. I learned that for myself and through skateboarding, which we'll talk about a bit later on.
Cool. So for you then, was up until your diagnosis,
Yeah.
was ADHD or anything ever come up in conversation about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So this label, this tag, ADHD, has always been there. It's always been mentioned. It's always been brought up, but never acted upon. So there was never any support, any help. There was never any guidance from the education system or from, I don't know, SENS, because we didn't have SENS when I was at school. There were like teaching assistants, but they didn't really help. Well, they help with special educational needs, but not to the degree of what SEN does now. So nobody really understood neurodivergence in the early 90s. It was just, you were just labeled bad, naughty, lazy, attention seeker, all those sort of unkind, derogatory terms, really, which are kind of untrue. Like how we regulate our emotions are just different to other people's, but we can't be accepted for that. So we have to be like everybody else in this kind of herd mentality that the education system back then, and sometimes in modern day culture as well, it's just like a conveyor belt. And
Yeah,
if they're not looking at your authenticity, they're not looking at your unique traits, what you're good at or what you're not good at. They just want you to conform and be like everybody else, just churning people out on like a conveyor belt kind of situation. So for me, I don't want to use the word failed, but I'd like to use the word failed actually, because I failed at school, but equally school failed me.
yeah,
They failed me because I wasn't in the right environment and they knew that I wasn't in the right environment. I speak for millions of other people. Did they do anything about it? Absolutely not. I was punished for just being myself. And like you say, that has a real effect on everything, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, faith, the way you look at people, the way you accept people. It affects everything growing up. And going back to being at school, I remember an encounter which really changed the way I was seeing ADHD. And everybody's saying, oh, I think Ryan's got ADHD, teachers, teaching assistants, the PTA, mums in the playground, parents in the playground, etc. Even my own mum and dad. My mum and dad have known from birth that I've was slightly different to other children in my behavior, in the way my thoughts processed, everything, how I handled my emotions, regulated my emotions. The fact that I was restless, couldn't sit still, never slept. I was dying, but I was still going. And that's that impairment between brain and body. And that's something that I still live with now, which is my brain wants to do one thing and my body wants to do another. And the two are never synchronized. Incredibly difficult to live with. It's frustrating for myself, but it's also frustrating for everybody else around it and everybody else around me. So I have to understand how they feel as well, which I've sort of taken on board as an adult, and I totally accept every part of ADHD from how I am with how I am with ADHD and how many others are with ADHD to how the everyday person sees and perceives ADHD. I've had to put myself in all those situations to truly understand it and comprehend it. And I do think now, having my own children, you get an insight to, obviously they're not like me, but they are in some ways. You get an insight to how you were for your parents when you were young. So that's kind of helped me a little bit understand things a little bit better, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, going back to what we originally talked about, because in true ADHD fashion, we've gone in all different directions, and now we're going to get back onto the topic because my mind's telling me, and I'm focused on that. So, what was it we were talking? Yeah, that was it. We were talking about when I first got told about ADHD. So yeah, first reports from primary school all said Ryan's behavior is erratic, he's impulsive, he's distractive, he disrupts the classroom, shouts out answers, can't sit still, fidgets, doesn't complete tasks when asked, doesn't follow instructions very well. And the work that was presented to me, and I still feel like this now sometimes, when the work is presented to you in the back of your mind and in your heart, you are determined, you are driven, you will want to do it. But then when it's presented in front of you, as you know, doing the podcasts and things with scripts and everything else, you can just totally get lost in it sometimes. And
Yeah.
you get brain fog. And then that brain fog leads to a cutout where you just basically like pulling the plug at the television set,
Yeah.
cut off. And every bit of information that you've digested or absorbed, forgotten. And that's been like it for me my entire life. So yeah, the work was set. Did it ever get achieved? Did it ever get completed? No. Could it have been achieved? Absolutely, if it was in the right working environment. But I was in a classroom with 27 other children that are also very loud, being kids, doing what they do. Of course, I'm going to get distracted. And again, ADHD was mentioned. Ryan's attention span isn't good. He needs to focus harder, try harder. The amount of times I've apologized for just being myself. I don't think there's actually a number in the dictionary that describes that numerical number, because I've apologized that so many times. Should we apologize for being ourselves? I don't believe we should. Uh, but I was made to feel like I had to. And I speak for millions of other people that have been through this process. So yeah, always apologizing, always sorry, always daydreaming, but big dreams. I wasn't just a blank canvas. I had big aspirations, big goals, big dreams, dreams that were like Hollywood blockbusters going on in my brain, but in the classroom presented themselves like I was just staring out the window, which I probably was to everybody else. But in my head, I was doing something totally different. Do you know what I mean? Or usually another great sign in the reports and things for me were Ryan seems to think a week ahead before the moments even happened. So I would always be in tomorrow before today had finished. And it's still like that now in some respects. However, like you say, I write things down and I've just got better at harnessing and controlling and channeling my ADHD. And I've controlled myself. I've taught myself to be more present in the moment, more mindful, not just about what I'm doing, but about others around me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, ADHD has always been mentioned. It's never not been mentioned. But like I say, for many years, nobody ever put their arm around me and said, "Oh, you've got ADHD, and this is what we're going to do to support you, or this is what we're going to do to help you with it," or even just explain to me what it is. Do you know what I mean? So I fell through primary school with ADHD. But like you mentioned earlier, expectations. I think in primary school, the expectations aren't as high. But when you start secondary school, big expectations, GCSEs, you are told right from the off, if you don't have good grades, you won't go to
Yeah.
university, you won't get a good job, you're never going to achieve anything. The whole cliche around that is unbelievable. But yeah, all that sort of thing. And like you say, if you're told something enough, you start to believe it. You start to take it on board and think, do you know what? I am a bad person. I am a lazy person. I am a restless person. You know, um, and obviously the demeanor, it doesn't change. You know, my demeanor was quite poor for a long time. Self confidence was very low. You know, but I think because I've got ADHD and I've got big energy and I'm good at excessively talking, and you know, it presents itself in a different manner to other people. They see me as some confident guy who can just get up and entertain people and make people laugh, and you know, not scared of making a fool of himself. But in reality, I'm a very introverted person. Sort of a I like to describe myself as an extroverted introvert, because
Yeah.
the way people see me is very extroverted, but the way I actually feel and think authentically are very introverted, you know, and that's such an ADHD thing. It's like that yin yang, do you know what I mean, of ADHD.
It is. I see that a lot. I've heard that a lot, and I've had that myself as well. It's very much kind of like, as you see in the movies, the clown or the comedian doing their thing on stage and being all out there, and then they go backstage and they're themselves, which is very, very different from the performance they just had to put on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's,
When the curtain drops, it's the
yeah,
yeah.
it's just our
Equally
performances a
though,
lot longer.
yeah, this is it. I think with me, what you see is what you get. You know, I don't try and dress it up. Even when I don't want to be energetic, I will be energetic because it just comes out of me and I can't control that. Um, I'm very motivated, very driven. Like I say, it's this constant. It's like an engine, and it doesn't turn off. You know,
Yeah,
and that's how I describe ADHD. Um, and obviously it runs out of fuel like any other engine. And when you run out of fuel, you get burnt out and you feel depressed. You have massive anxiety, you question everything, question people's motives, um, get really defensive, which leads to frustration and anger, and then it just doesn't end well. But this is a constant thing, you know. You have the positive side of that, which is when you're on a good run, you are confident, you're energetic, you're approachable, you know how to read people's emotions. I feel like I can read other people's emotions, except for my own sometimes, which is it's like helping people. Fantastic at helping other people,
yeah,
but I can't
yeah,
help myself. And it's so true. I'm very good at opening my ears and my heart to other people, but cannot see when something is going wrong for myself or help myself get out of them situations. So yeah, it's a constant thing. And I think with ADHD now, I think a lot of people, you know, do I dare say, yeah, I do dare say it. I feel like it's become, there's certain people which are portraying it to be this, like you say, superpower, this incredible gift, which is right in its own way, but they don't talk about the negatives of it as
yeah,
well. So they're just portraying all the positives. People see positive energy, they're going to flock and attract to it. They're going to want a piece of the action. So people are going to start wanting ADHD. It's become a desirable label. Whereas before, when you told people you had ADHD, people would point a finger at you and say, there's no such thing. You're just naughty, you're bad, you're lazy, you're not going anywhere in life, you're an idiot, basically. And that's how
yeah,
people used to make you feel. You know, so nobody wanted these labels. You were tarnished with the same brush. Um, and obviously the powers of the internet and the way we are now, obviously what we're doing, people are talking more openly about it, more rawly about it, which is fantastic. But equally, nobody wants to delve into the negatives, really, that they're all talking about the positives in, you know, coaching this and coaching that. It's all very well having a coach and trying to, you know, utilize your ADHD, but not everybody can afford a coach. or not everybody has access to these resources. So I do truly believe that we need to start opening up more about the negatives and not worrying about what other people are going to think about them, the stigmatization of it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Before I was diagnosed, I'm not a great talker, speaker. I can't find my words. My head's going too fast to get my words out. I forget words badly and all the time. Medication helps with that, but I still need to have the scripts up and everything, so I can pluck those words off the screen rather than from my head.
That just keeps the traffic flowing, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're on
yeah,
the motorway, it keeps it flowing nicely.
yeah,
I totally understand that concept. I think when you get thrown off, it can be incredibly hard to get back on track. With everything, like you say, with focus, with self-esteem, motivation. And again, no one's talking about them things. People are just talking about, oh yeah, look what it's made me achieve, look what it's made me do. And I'm not one of them people. Yeah, I've always spoke positively about ADHD, but now I'm sort of reflecting more on the negatives and the negative impact it can have on your life if it isn't accepted, self-accepted, and put in the right environment. And I think, I've seen it myself, you'd have seen it yourself. There's a crisis at the moment. There's £6 billion that are getting cut for special educational needs in school. That is a travesty.
yeah,
That shouldn't be allowed to happen. If anything, they should be putting another £6 billion into it, not retracting it and taking it away. So these problems are going to get darker, they're going to get deeper, they're going to become more profound. And I feel like more people are going to fall through the cracks. And like you say, it's going to affect a lot of lives, and not just the people's lives with these neurodivergence and special educational needs, but their families and friends and colleagues and everything else around it.
yeah. It's a huge thing. And when you're not in it, when you're not living it, you seriously do not understand what that life is. What that life is like. Be it to be a neurodivergent or ADHD yourself, or be a parent or carer of neurodivergent kids.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're
Yeah.
not there, if you're not walking in those shoes, you really shouldn't be making any decisions about what we do. Um, but having the support, the right, it's not always money. Sometimes it's just the education attitude towards,
Attitude,
even,
wonderful way of describing that. Yeah,
and
totally
absolutely.
agree
I
with
mean,
you.
that's because a lot of people come from it and they view things from the different sort of things they've witnessed in their lives, what they've come up against, and what they've been told to them or their kids or whatever it is. And for me, it is the attitude. It's all very well saying oh, we do this and we do that, and this is how we can help. But if you don't really believe that and you're just doing it because, or that's what you've told to do, it's not really going to have a massive impact. You don't say, yes, we understand ADHD and we'll support you. However, we are still going to exclude you for not keeping still in a class of 30 people, and at the back of the class where you can't really hear us, and you're obviously not going to be able to listen to every single word I say. So therefore, everything we give you, you're not going to know what you're doing. So you're going to be bored,
Exactly.
and then
I
it's going to
totally agree.
be so. But it's still your fault though, and that's just so wrong. It's
It is
just so
wrong.
wrong.
And that falls into the category which I've been sort of speaking out about recently, which is tick boxing. I feel like the system, it's a broken system. I don't blame teachers. I don't blame teaching assistants. I don't blame special educational needs workers. It's not their fault. It's the bigger picture, which is the system. It's a systematic failure. And I do think it is failing not just the children, but as you've mentioned, their families, their support networks, the people around them hugely. And it's causing this massive divide. There is a huge divide at the moment.
Yeah,
And you've got all different kinds of people arguing different things. But the bigger picture of that is if everybody just binded together and understood that it's a system that is telling you these things and not just a group of people, then more things would get achieved. But unfortunately, everyone's just opposing each other. I'm absolutely dumbfounded at the moment. I'm shocked by some of the comments that I read, not just read on the internet, but some of the things that I see with neurodivergent people to other neurodivergent people. You know, it's like my problems are worse than your problems. Where's the empathy? You know,
Yeah.
where's the understanding? We should all be supporting each other, working together. You know, should be a camaraderie between us because we've all been through it in different walks of life, through different circumstances, through different things. But we all have a neurobiological condition which is being judged and misunderstood by so many. So we all have that in common. And I just find it remarkable, like how negative people can be with each other that have got the same problems. It's a scary world at the moment.
It is. We need to stick together. You know what I mean? Because we know what it's like to be pushed to one side and not believed and felt made to feel sort of just beneath everybody else. So we don't need to be making anyone else feel that way. We need to be picking
Of
each other
course
up.
not. You see, I've always been very transparent and very honest. ADHD, oversharing, all that kind of thing. It's been a part of my life. I've always overshared information, feelings, everything. And people have exploited that and taken advantage of that, stolen my ideas. But I've never had a chip on my shoulder. Um, I've never been in denial. Do you know what I mean? I don't use it. I'm not bothered by it. You know, I just get on with it and then I come up with another idea, and I'm quite innovative like that in that respect. But I know there's many people that aren't maybe as resilient as me. So I speak for them that it's having an impact on everybody, you know, and if you knock somebody's confidence when they are speaking out to you about how they are truly feeling and what they are going through, then that is going to totally put them off wanting to open up in the
Yeah.
future about future things, which again leads to all kinds of negatives, depression, anxiety, other more serious mental health conditions, which inevitably usually sometimes lead to suicide. And it's brutal. um why can't we just be kinder to each other, more accepting, and just more empathetic? You know, in young people, I'm trying to encourage them to be more empathetic. And it's amazing, astonishing when I go into schools and colleges and things, and I speak to teenagers even, and I speak to them about the word empathy, and they don't even know what that means. They can't even
Yeah.
tell you the definition of what empathy is. So, um, so yeah, I do feel like the system needs to be preaching a little bit more about understanding and comprehension, and sort of be more empathetic in everyday life, not just for people with ADHD or neurodivergence, but with everything.
Yeah.
It's easy to close up, have your guard up, and just sort of shut down everything, isn't it? But why can't we just understand, just go a little bit deeper into the wound, you know, which I could sit and think about that all day.
Yeah. Well, as I said for a long time now, that everybody has a story. You just don't know it yet. So if you approach people with curiosity rather than judgment, you'll get to know the story. You get to understand, and you'll, be it help, be it just understand and not criticize and make things worse for that person or those people. Um, we
Absolutely.
we're all going through something, but we just don't know what it is yet. Yes, me and you, we both have ADHD, but your story, no doubt, is it can be different to mine. But unless we sort of tell each other about our stories, we're not going to know it.
No,
But
exactly.
but when we
And
come down to
like you say,
these, we
that
talk and we just hear each other out, and we have a conversation. And I want you to be you. I want me to be me. You are going to interrupt me. We are going to go off on tangents.
Exactly
I'm
that.
not correcting that. Just whatever it is. I haven't asked half the questions that I wrote down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, because
Doesn't matter.
this is what it
It doesn't
is.
matter. And obviously, people with ADHD are very critical of everything, including themselves. So, like you say, that compassion, that empathy, it's life changing. It changes a lot of lives, and it's a total no brainer. But I do believe, and I will say, I do believe since COVID, I think people have become more guarded and certainly more selfish in a lot of respects. They've become more, they've gone into survival mode almost,
Yeah.
where basically other people's problems are not my concern, which is not the right attitude. It goes back to attitude again, you know. And I do think a lot of things have gone backwards, and it's scary. But like, if more people start speaking out like we're doing now, like you say, you accept me, I accept you. I know you've got to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt. I'm not going to be able to sit still for long periods of times. I'm probably going to lose concentration, and my mind will wander off into something else, or I'm going
Oh,
to look
I
out the window.
guarantee you, when I'm going through to edit this, I mean, I will be going, I don't remember him saying that in
Yeah,
quite a lot of
exactly.
places.
Exactly, but that's that you understand yourself, but you also understand me. You understand what ADHD is, and you've learned to self-accept and accept others with the same condition. And to
Yeah.
me, that's what we all need to be working towards doing with neurodivergence. We need to be more empathetic, more compassionate, more understanding, and we just need to try a little bit harder. Everybody, needs to just try a little bit harder, including myself. We all do. I don't think there's an excuse for not trying. We might try and fail, but at least we know we've tried.
Yeah.
It's when we don't try and we try and justify it, it becomes a problem, because then,
Yeah.
then that's when the stigma gets attached. I truly believe that's when the stigma gets attached, because people are like, oh, look at him, he's not trying, thinks he's better than everybody else. She's better than everybody else. Why? Why? It's ADHD. It's such a bad thing. Look at them. You know, we just need to try. And yeah, we are going to get judged. We are going to find things difficult, more intricate than others. We're going to struggle with concentration. We are going to struggle with reading people's emotions, regulating our own emotions. We are going to struggle with life. But as long as we are trying, we're waking up every single day and we're trying to be better people, that's all we can do. And if people choose to accept that, then that's their issue. But at least we can justify it by saying, well, I'm trying. What are you doing about it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I say that to my son. I don't really care about your test results and things like that at school. I don't. What I care about is that you try your hardest. If you tell me you tried your hardest, I can't ask any more than that.
No,
You know?
exactly. That's what the system should be saying to these youngsters. Just try your best. Not saying if you don't achieve these goals, or we get good statistics from Ofsted out of you, then you're not going to achieve anything, basically. To me, that's not right. But that's the attitude, and that is the way it comes across. They're using children. For instance, there's many children that are masked. Let me just reiterate that. So there's many children that are masking their ADHD or other neurodivergence, autism, other problems. Okay, and because I'm just trying to think of a good way of explaining this so it edits well. Right, I'm coming back in. So the best way I can describe this
Yeah.
is the system at the moment seems really fixated on overlooking people's emotions and problems. So if you are achieving well statistically in the education system, then everything else can be falling apart around you, and that will be overlooked. There's nothing wrong with you. You're doing well. You're achieving the
Yeah.
grades that, you're overachieving or whatever. If you're not doing well, then you're the worst thing ever, and basically labeled all these bad derogatory terms. But the person that is overachieving could be suffering massively inside, mentally, emotionally, and even physically, and we wouldn't know about it because they're just pretending that it doesn't exist. So for me, it's just like you say, it's a failure from the system. I think everybody should be treated equally, whether you were a high achiever or not. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't define who you are, where you're going in life. I was told I'd never achieve anything. Here I am sat doing this interview with you today, talking not just about ADHD, but my career and things. And I've achieved a lot. Was I ever supposed to achieve these things? Absolutely not. Nobody ever put their arm around me and said, "Oh, Ryan, you're going to be a great presenter. You've got great charisma. You can channel that into your performing, or you can, the world is your oyster kind of thing." No one ever did that with me. There was none of that. And I'm not resentful. I don't hold any resentment to the education system because I wouldn't be going back into it doing what I'm doing right now with you, me, and ADHD. However, it's good to reflect on it because there's some things that even I see now being part of it that haven't changed.
Yeah.
And expectations haven't changed. They just present themselves differently, just like ADHD does. So yeah, it's just about, like you say, compassion, understanding, and acceptance. But not everybody wants to accept people for who they are. They want something more. And I've always said this many times in many interviews, why can't people just accept people for who they are rather than what they could be? Their true, unique, authentic selves. That's what they should be. And I think if you live your life searching for validation, trying to be like everybody else, then it's going to get to a point where when you truly become yourself and you find that self-esteem and that confidence to let it out, people are going to judge you for it and they're going to use it against you almost and be like, "Well, why are you acting like that? Why are you acting so strangely?" But I've always been like that. I've just masked it. I've just pretended otherwise. Who are you? Who's the real you? We don't even know you. And there's many people doing this in denial about what ADHD is, who they are, and what they think other people are going to think of them.
Yeah. If you expect people to go, do things for themselves, support themselves, and work things out, and be better at life, you need to be able to allow them to do that and support them to do that. You can't just knock people down all the time and expect them to just get up and know what they should be doing straight away. It's just ridiculous. And I think sometimes people in education should educate themselves a little bit more. And I think nowadays, with it being talked about so much, it's really, I don't, especially with people who work in education, I don't believe when they say they don't know about it or they don't know how they can support someone with ADHD. I mean, there's loads of things you can do, and everyone's an individual, but to do and to understand basic things that, focus harder, try harder to that's never going to work. Sit still for someone who really can't stay still, and to try and make people do really boring things that they're telling you it's boring, and because it's boring,
Borgasms. That's what I like to call them. Borgasm. Yeah, where you just that bored that you're just like, "Oh, geez, I need something to stimulate my brain and mind, and just give me something more, please." Yeah, of course. I totally get it.
There's little changes that can be done, and to make people's lives so much easier, and for help people to learn and understand, and not just be held back all the time. And if it continues, people will start shutting off more. I mean, hey, remember the days back in sort of 80s, but even before then, when no one talks about depression because of the stigma.
Really, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that worked out well, didn't it? For the suicide rate. It was just incredible. You just couldn't talk about it. Men don't get depressed. Men don't get sad. You got to hold it in. You got to go through it all. You just got to crack on with life. And the suicide rate's just, it's stupid. We want to be bringing them down, not, you know, increasing them.
I
And
always
it's,
say it takes more to prop somebody up and push somebody than it does to be. And anyone can criticize somebody, and people do, people do, and they're very vicious. They are nowadays, especially with the access to the internet,
yeah,
anonymity. People can be anything they want to be, say anything they want to say, and not have to worry about the consequences of doing so. I've never seen that as a good thing. However, I think you get something more out of actually saying whether you want to or not are two different things. Even if you don't want to do it and you still do it, you're not being fake, you're not being false. When something's good. And if something's good or somebody's doing good, then they deserve appraisal, they deserve recognition, and they deserve somebody telling them, well done, that's fantastic, keep going. Why can't we just support each other?
yeah,
Why do we have to be negative? Why do we have to bring our problems into it? Well, my problems are worse than your problems. Again, that's just, it's a vicious circle. And it, like I said, it's about breaking that mold, coming out of that mindset. And over the years, which I'm going to talk to you about now, because this is what's changed my life. And I want to give some of these listeners and viewers a bit of an insight into how ADHD has positively impacted my life. With a lot of training and a lot of self-discipline and a lot of control, I've managed to sort of channel it into doing some good things. So, but yeah, going back to what we were initially talking about, which is negativity, there's just no room for it. And people that have got neurodivergence know full well how easy it is to be backed into a corner, and everything thrown at you and be punished for being who you are. So the last thing we need to be doing as a neurodivergence community is taking our problems out on each other, because it isn't
yeah,
going to help anything. It's just fuel to the fire. And I think, the bigger picture of this is just people need to be more accepted, but not just of other people, of themselves as well, of their
yeah,
own traits, their own flaws. Um, and yeah, that's something that I've always preached, talked very highly about, is self-acceptance and acceptance to other people.
yeah. I mean, this is one of the reasons why when I started this podcast, it started as therapy for me, but then speaking to other people as well about it. And this is why I tell people that this is a safe place. Be yourself. Don't hold back. Talk how you want to talk. Say what you want to say. Um,
Talking therapy.
this
And it's,
is
it's brilliant because it's not just about the therapy between the presenter and the person that's being interviewed. It's people that are watching this, that are resonating with this. It's helping them as well.
yeah,
And sometimes finding a voice for them when they need it the most. So things like this are really important. This is why I'm doing it. And I'm really happy that we can sit here this afternoon and talk about what we're talking about.
cool. I mean, yeah, it's got to be done. It does help me, but it helps other people as well. And I've done this, and also now last year I started up a peer-to-peer support group, where I live. And again, it's the same thing. It is a safe place. And that's like, the number one rule. This is a safe place. So be who you are when you come to the groups and when we chat online and whatever. Be who you are. Don't apologize.
No, exactly. We
We
shouldn't have
all
to.
here, we're all going through stuff because of the ADHD and what other neurodivergent conditions are hitting us as well. But we're all here to support each other, and that is it. It has to be a safe place because this is what we
Yeah, like
need.
like seriously, like you mentioned, like I mentioned previously, the amount of times I've apologized for being my true, unique, authentic self. There isn't a word numerically that describes that. Even Carol Vorderman wouldn't be able to come up with a word that can describe that figure, that number, because I speak for many other people with ADHD. We are constantly apologizing for who we are. And we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to apologize. Yes, there's things we could do better. Yes, there's things we could try harder with. But there's also some things that we totally can't help as well. And like you said, there needs to be more comprehension, more understanding around it, and more acceptance on both sides. Self-acceptance from us that have the condition, and acceptance from society.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so from, I mean, looking back at the education, what do you think realistically would create the biggest impact in schools? The one thing.
So I've been fortunate enough to do talks in all different kinds of schools and learning environments over the last 2 years. And I've kind of gone back to my roots, which was alternate education. And I will go into explaining what alternate education is in a moment. But basically, at the age of 15, everything that had gone before me, from, like I said, from being an infant to adolescence, the impulsivity, the distractions, the disruption, the dysregulation of emotions, the forgetfulness, the energy, the restlessness, the erratic behavior had followed me through all those years. And it came to its head when I acted on impulse in a situation where there was bullying and I didn't like what I saw. So I stood up to a group of people who took me under their wing, but were really exploiting me and taking advantage of my good nature, shall we say. They liked having me around. I was a bit of a class clown, village idiot, funny, and a lot of energy, a lot of confidence that they didn't have, shall we say. And I would do things that they told me to do because I didn't think about the consequences of doing so. So I would just do it straight away. A yes person. And I didn't like that anymore. And they were bullying somebody who now has autism, but didn't know they had autism. We didn't know what autism really was then. We knew that they were different and they had learning difficulties. I didn't agree with that. I didn't like that. So I stood up to them and basically said, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing this. Which resulted in me having a fight with this group of people. And obviously that impulsivity, the frustration led to the anger, and then the impulsivity led to me lashing out and not thinking about the consequences. So I got into some confrontation, and when I lashed out, I missed one of the people that I was lashing out at and ended up hitting a teacher. And not only was it a teacher, but it was a female teacher. My heart broke instantaneously, as did my demeanor, and everything just fell apart. I collapsed on the floor, was crying hysterically, because I knew it was game over. I knew everything had come to an end in that present moment. But again, the consequences, if only they'd flashed before me before it happened, might have been avoided. But obviously, I speak for millions of people with ADHD. We just throw ourselves in, don't think about the danger, don't think about the consequences, don't think about the impact of what's going to happen, not just to you, but to the other people around you. And that's what happened. The school, the education system, basically, we've had enough of Ryan. He's a bad influence. He's a bad person. He's a bad child. Um, he's not bringing anything to the table at our school. We don't want him anymore. So they expelled me permanently, and not only just expelled me, but they also put bad words into other surrounding schools in the area. So it made it incredibly difficult for my parents to get me back into education. And I was heartbroken because I just felt totally misunderstood. I'm not a bad person. I've never been a bad person. Um, and I feel like they sort of made an example of me and ADHD, really. Because they were mentioning ADHD, even though I wasn't diagnosed. It was like they knew I had it, but didn't want to support or accommodate it either. So yeah, they kind of left me out to the dogs, and I got picked up by PRU, Pupil Referral Unit, in Scarborough, and I got sent there, which is alternate education, and it was a bit of a game changer. I always remember the first day that I went to PRU, a taxi came and collected me from my house and took me to PRU. And I got sat down next to this person, and there's a group of us. And I was quite a creative person then, found skateboarding, found art, used to have quite long hair and used to wear different clothes and things. And everybody in PIU, without sounding judgmental, because I'm not a judgmental person, but everybody kind of did the same thing and wore the same things and had a similar outlook on life. Got sat down, I introduced myself to this person that was sat next to me, big energy. He didn't introduce himself back. He just basically said, "So, what are you in here for then?" That was his first thing he said to me. And I told him, I offloaded and said everything that I'd done. I think I've got ADHD, I'm restless, I can't sit still, can't concentrate, can't focus, can't listen. I'm stupid because I can't learn. I also lashed out and hit a teacher, not just the teacher, but a female teacher. I shouldn't hit women. And then I just went in a full ADHD conversation tangent, shall we say, where it's all just going crazy, offloading how I really felt erratically. And basically, he started laughing. He burst out into laughter. And I thought, oh, another person who's laughing at me. Good attention, bad attention. We don't care. We have ADHD. So I just sort of smiled back and went with it. And he was laughing at me, not with me. And I kind of got inquisitive to that and said, well, what's so funny? And he turned to me and says, well, I'm in here because I stabbed somebody. And that really changed the mood for me, because I didn't intentionally want to hurt anybody, whereas the person sat next to me did. And he knew he did, and he told me he did. So again, it's a conscience thing, right and wrong, misunderstandings. And PIU saved my life. Yes, the person sat next to me had done a bad thing. It was wrong. But when I was in PIU, I was never judged. I was never, my ADHD was never used against me, neither was my behavior. And it was also like an alternate way of learning. So you wouldn't necessarily do a full day of core subjects. There was no expectations. It was more relaxed, and we all achieved stuff. But I didn't stay in PIU very long. I was there for a few months, and then I ended up going to a thing called RIOTAS, which was at Yorkshire Coast College. A wonderful scheme. It stands for re-education other than at school. And how it operated and worked was, if you'd been sort of kicked out of mainstream schooling, it was basically a second chance for people that wanted to learn, and had maybe fallen through the system. And I had a go at it, and I took to it straight away, because it wasn't just learning core subjects. You weren't being preached to that you have to achieve things. It was more relaxed, but it was more real. Like, everything was more real. You learned life skills. You did catering and cooking, cleaning. You learned about finances and money, whilst juggling your GCSEs and your coursework and your core subjects. You also got an opportunity to do recreational subjects, hobbies, things that you maybe showed interest in, which at school I always wanted to do: art, music, and drama. And they were the three subjects that I picked to do my GCSEs with in secondary school. And I was denied all possibilities of doing them, because none of the teachers wanted to teach me, basically. He won't listen, he won't take it seriously, he's very flippant. It'll be wasted. Why not give it to a student who deserves this opportunity? Little did they know that I had a gift, which I do. I've got a gift for art. I've got a very creative flair, very innovative. My brain never stops. And if that was put in the right environment, as this sort of talk has been the highlight of the talk, is that it's the right environment. If I've been put in the right environment, the possibilities could have been endless.
Yeah.
And the thing is, all these things started to sort of shine through RIOTAS. I remember this guy who's called Rob Brown. I'm going to give him a shout out, a lot of credit, because that man was my role model and he saved my life. And if he's watching, if he's still alive, big shout out to you, Rob, because he was such a nice man and he didn't judge anybody, but he had such a gift. He had a unique way of interacting and engaging with special educational needs, with challenging behaviour, with people with ADHD, and he really saved my life. He wasn't what I'd class as a formal qualified teacher, but he was a mentor, and he taught me more than any teacher ever did about everything. And he came up to me and gave me the opportunity and said, would you like to do some recreational subjects? And on a Wednesday, you'd do recreation. So whatever you picked, you would do. I picked performing arts, and I got an opportunity, a second chance to go and have a go at doing performing arts at Westwood campus. Now, Westwood campus in Scarborough is basically the old theatre in the round. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. Sir Alan Ayckbourn obviously used to write plays and things there and whatnot. So it's quite prestige. And to get an opportunity to go and do that recreationally on a Wednesday was like a no-brainer for me. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And then I started doing some drawing and painting and just all kinds of different stuff, things that I wasn't allowed to do at school, you know. And then my life kind of changed. The mood shifted a little bit because I ended up achieving all my coursework that I was told I wouldn't achieve in 6 months. Did that in 6 months. You know, you're meant to do it in 3 years. I did it in 6 months because I was in the right environment. And it just proves, I'm living proof that many people with ADHD, if they're in the right environment, can go on and have great success. They can achieve anything they want to achieve, but they have to be in the right environment, and that is crucial.
Yeah.
So when I did Riotas, I got all my GCSEs, got all C's and above. Bit of a transformation from being told that you're never going to achieve anything, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you got to end up down the factories like the rest of them. That's what they used to say to me. Well, I've got a high national diploma in performing arts and all my GCSEs, which you weren't going to give me. So again, alternate education, really, really important. The campaign You, Me and ADHD has really focused on this. I believe, and I'm going to campaign to try and get a special educational needs hub, school, or unit in every town and city across the UK. It should be standard, and it should be in place. Unfortunately, it's not.
No.
There's so many people in mainstream education with neurodivergence that are feeling the pain and going through what I've been through right now, and it could all be avoided through alternate education. It works wonders, and it's more relaxed, and it's, like you said, there's no judgment. It's a safe place for people that have neurodivergence that want to learn.
Yeah. I think if they just took the time to try and understand the individual, not just the neurodivergent
Absolutely.
condition, because ADHD is this, but this is how this person presents. So this is how we're going to help this person, and this person with ADHD over here, we're going to do things slightly differently because this is how they present and this is what they need. So it has to be individualized. Absolutely. And
it's amazing when people come in and they tell you, oh, you've got ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Ooh, big words, right? But really, just should be telling you achieving despite his, her, or their diagnosis, because it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to whether you've got a diagnosis or not. ADHD is there. It's embedded in you. Doesn't mean to say that you can't achieve things just because you've got this label, this acronym, this condition. Anything can be achieved if you are in the right environment and around the right people and have the right support network. Thankfully, I managed to get myself into that network after many years of trying and failing. But I speak for millions of others that maybe don't have a support network, or maybe don't have a family that's supporting them, or so this is why it's crucial I'm doing what I'm doing, and not just what I'm doing, but as a neurodivergent community. Again, it's what we spoke about previously in this podcast about acceptance and compassion and empathy. We need to be showing those things and supporting each other and pushing each other to achieve more.
Absolutely. Because we can. And we can't leave it until people are adults. We can't. We
No, exactly.
fricking can't. It just if you're ever in doubt, if a teacher is ever in doubt, if about what they're doing, if it's working or not, or speak to someone who's late diagnosed and ask them how was their education, how was their work life, how was their social life, how was their married life, whatever. Okay, after being told they're not good enough constantly throughout their younger years, okay, ask, and they will tell you.
Exactly.
They will tell
I've
you.
said this before. I truly believe that young people, I think I'm not a naive person, and neither are they. And I don't think they should be treated so naively. I think if you just conducted yourself in the right way, young people will communicate, they will talk to you. Um, but many people don't know how to engage and talk to young people, like you say, and then they feel judged, and then they lose faith, and they see authority figures, and they're like, no thanks. It needs to be more relaxed. Everything just
Yeah,
needs to be more relaxed. No
yeah.
judgment, no ulterior motives, just real, raw, and relaxed. That's all it needs to be.
I wish one day, one day.
One day, but we can keep talking, we
Yeah,
can keep dreaming, we can keep pushing. And that's why I'm really fired up with this Yumi and ADHD thing at the moment. It's not a tick boxing task or thing. It's not about going into schools and saying, "Oh, we've had Ryan in. It's let's tick this off the list." It's about making an impact, and it's starting to make an impact. I know it's starting to make an impact because I'm feeling both positive and negative things occurring and happening around it. So when people are starting to get negative and getting their backs up about it, it tells me it's doing its job properly.
yeah.
Because none of them are neurodivergent people. They're all people that work for the system or work in the system that don't comprehend the bigger picture.
Yeah. I do, even at this point, I do find it hard. I struggle with the concept of people in education who are local authority, whoever is involved in the system, who act like they don't get it or don't believe in what ADHD is or any other neurodivergent condition. Although the science is there, it's blatant, it's right there, it's in your face. You can go and look at the science, the actual science, not the social media science, the actual science. It is there. You can't dispute it.
I mean, the social media sides of ADHD is like having a conversation with somebody with ADHD, really, isn't it? We could go off on one thing and then go off on many others. So, yeah, you're totally right. But it's easy for people not to understand it. It's easy for people to overlook it, and I also think it's quite hypocritical that there's people probably showing signs and symptoms of perhaps having a neurodivergent, and then projecting that denial onto everybody else, self projection of
Yeah.
how they're really feeling onto somebody else. It's I've seen it all before. But like you said, the more we talk about it, the more it's in people's faces, in people's ears, in people's brains, trying to understand it. And I do think the mood will shift.
Yeah.
Um, I do think the mood will shift.
It will.
But
We got to keep the conversations going. Definitely
yeah,
got to keep those going
absolutely.
in any way
But
possible, in the best way possible. And looking at talking about the science. Let's not just
facts are important.
yeah,
Science is important. You should
yeah,
I always stick to the facts. Yeah, I speak from my lived personal experience,
yeah,
but I stick to the facts. It's all factual. I don't dress anything up to be something that it's not.
yeah,
Raw and real
yeah.
every time. But
You've got to, and for me, yes, you've got to speak about your own experience, absolutely, and I like to think that's where everyone's really coming from, but you've got to keep the facts in there as well as, and I don't, stick in your own lane as well. I like to think, and for myself, I am inattentive presentation predominantly. So I'm not going to spiel on about what it is like to be physically hyperactive. My son is, okay.
Yeah.
I am not. Yes, I do need these, and I do tap my feet and things like that. However, I don't know what it's like to be physically hyperactive and have to get off my chair and have to do handstands for no reason whatsoever in the middle of the class. I I don't. I've never had that. So I'm.
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
exhausting. And not only is it exhausting, but it's painful. And I don't really speak out about it, but it's painful. And the reason it's painful is because it's that impairment, that neurobiological thing, that chemistry that's imbalanced. It's painful because, like I mentioned earlier, your body wants to do one thing and your brain will tell you to do another. And there's never any times it really connects and flows fluently and synchronized. It's a constant battle between brain and body. And when you are really hyperactive and you don't want to be, it presents itself at times that it shouldn't, and vice versa. It never happens at times when you need it to. So yeah, I sometimes think it's whoever created me, it's their way of playing a trick on me, really. But yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. But I mentioned there about the school and things, about alternate education. I think that's really helped me
That's good.
because obviously going back into alternate education, that taught when I was in alternate education, my behavior was looked at more thoroughly. And ADHD was obviously on my notes, but had continued to show its signs and symptoms through Riotas, through Pru. Um, and those people that worked in them environments knew what they were looking for. And they said, without a shadow of a doubt, you have ADHD, Ryan, diagnosed or undiagnosed. And then they started to mention about getting a diagnosis. But I must just mention that my mum and dad have always been very vocal, very supportive, and very consistent about trying to get me help and support, both in education and out of education, with ADHD. But back when I was really small as a youngster, it was a much tougher and harder process to not just diagnose,
Mm.
but to get support and help with. So it was a long road, and went through Riotas, went through Pru, got my GCSEs, and then I went on to do a national diploma in performing arts at the same college I did the recreational performing arts at, Westwood. And it was wonderful. I learnt a lot. It was hard, very hard for me. The director, the coordinator would pass me a script and I would have to learn that, and digesting that information, finding that ability to focus was really tough in a college environment. And then having to remember the lines and perform them that would never come out how I sort of recited them. And it was a nightmare. And it was also not just a nightmare for myself academically, but it was a nightmare for the other people on the course, because we'd do a play or we'd do a performance together. Everybody gets given a line. I would forget the line and then totally go off in a typical ADHD conversation format of something else and something else and something else, and then finally get back round to the line. But I've always been very good at improvisation. So sometimes I would add my own words and my own lines and things, and people are completely confused by it. What's he talking about? This isn't part of the script. Like, but that's such an ADHD thing. And I think that's when I really started to recognize, as I was getting older into my late teen years, I wanted to perform, but I knew there was something there which was holding me back a little bit with it. Yes, it propelled me into the limelight, like say, with the energy and the confidence, that physicality. But mentally, I was drowning. I was finding it really difficult. My feet were like stuck in wet concrete, and it had set. I wanted to do all these things, but I couldn't move, and that's how I felt. And it was incredibly frustrating for myself and my family and everybody around me at the time. But through this time, there's one thing that I've not mentioned on other podcasts as much, which is skateboarding. And at age 11, I got a skateboard for Christmas. and it completely changed my life. Game changer. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I've always been a very physically athletic, on the go
Yeah.
kind of person. Always loved the idea of being part of a team, playing in a team, sort of yearn to be in a team sport. I've tried everything from basketball to football, um, grassroots sports, and none of them really worked out for me. Not because I'm not athletic enough or good enough, just because I really struggle to focus and listen and take instructions. I'll give you an example of this. When I used to play football, I've always played in goal. So even as a kid, they put me in the goal and the whistle would blow, the game would start. I'm telling myself consciously, I am going to make some epic saves. I'm going to save the day. We are going to win this game. We've got an amazing team. Let's give it everything that we've got. I'm going to give it everything that I've got. Would it ever turn out like that? Absolutely not. It'd be a total disaster. The whistle would blow. I'd be in the game. I'd be hyper focused. Then I'd lose attention, be distracted by something else going on around me. Bam, I'm 1-0 down, and then 2-0 and 3-0 and so on. And then the team would get frustrated by me not paying attention. It would cause arguments, it would cause trouble, it would cause frustration. So at this point in time, my mum and dad knew that team sports weren't really for me. So I got gifted a skateboard for Christmas on my 11th. When I was 11. When I was 11, I got gifted a skateboard for Christmas. And it was a game changer, completely transformed my life. I mean, I wasn't very good at skateboarding to start with, by no means, but I became hyper fixated on skateboarding. One, because whatever that dopamine fix that your brain craves as an ADHD is, I found that in skateboarding. Not caffeine, not energy drinks, skateboarding. Skateboarding was my thing. It really stimulated me, but it also disciplined me. Um, and I got given a skateboard for Christmas, and like I said, it changed my life. And I've continued to skateboard throughout my adult life as well. I skateboard now still, teach skateboarding now, and it's probably the best thing that I've ever done. And the reason I'm gonna put this in words to you, the reason it's so important, because I didn't fight my ADHD, I rode my ADHD, and skateboarding became my classroom. It taught me to focus. It taught me. So I'm trying to think of some better ways of describing this. It taught me discipline through repetition, and it gave me a passport to new cultures, learning about new music, new art, introducing me to different people around the world, which is something that I've never had an opportunity to do in mainstream education,
Yeah.
but skateboarding took me to all those places. So I was hyper fixated on skateboarding. One, because it's fast, two, because it's dangerous, and three, it's taught me some valuable life lessons, which are, if I am not disciplined and I am not focused on landing a trick or trying to stay upright and balanced, I will fall. And not only will I will fall incredibly hard and get hurt. And I learned that rather quickly in skateboarding, that you cannot be unfocused. You have to try and channel your focus into everything that you do skateboarding, because it requires balance and physicality. And like you say, if you lose interest, you get hurt, you get burnt. And that was a valuable life lesson for me. Um, so I thought, if I can do that on a skateboard, then I need to start sort of implementing this into my everyday life. And that's what I did. And skateboarding taught me to do that. So that was a great channel for me, was the skateboarding, especially with the hyperactivity side of things, because it would tire me out a little bit.
That's good. I've never thought of it that way. But like, yeah, you've got to have discipline. You carry on with skateboarding, whether you become good or not is kind of irrelevant. You carry on skateboarding. Okay. I mean, let's face it, everyone who tries a skateboard at some point is going to fall over, fall off, and hurt themselves. So if you carried on in skateboarding, you've now started to learn to pick yourself up and carry on.
Exactly that. You know, you get knocked down, but you get back up again. And I think that's such a cliche thing to say, but it's so true. You know, building that resilience up, and skateboarding has built my resilience up in my life for everything, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And if I hadn't have found skateboarding, then my life might have turned out a lot differently.
Yeah.
I think it would have turned out differently. There's no doubt about it. Like I say, it's taken me to all kinds of places. I've met different creeds, different cultures, different races. It's been an amazing journey. And the thing with skateboarding is it doesn't matter what walk of life you are from. Skateboarders harmoniously come together. We pump each other to do good things, to learn new things, and develop our skills. And that's what I've always loved about skateboarding, was the fact that it wasn't just a sport, it was a culture, and it accommodated people like myself. And I think a lot of people with ADHD love skateboarding for that reason. There's a few reasons why they like it. One, because it's an independent sport, so you don't necessarily have to rely upon anybody else to go and do it. You
Yeah.
can pick up a skateboard and do it at any moment in time. Whereas a team sport, there would be expectations, there would be frustration, there would be all kinds of feelings around it. And skateboarding doesn't judge you. You just do it for you. And it's really saved my life. I'd be lost without my skateboard.
No, that's good. It's good that you found it. It's good that you found your tribe. You know, that's what I guess some of it is all about. It's finding your tribe, finding that kind of
I think
the people.
The really important message to other people is, yes, I got gifted a skateboard for Christmas, but there's loads of things that you can try. And I've tried hundreds of different hobbies and activities and things. Skateboarding was my hyper focus, my hyper fixation, because it wasn't just about me getting good at skateboarding and enjoying it. I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to know everything about it. I had that thirst for knowledge for it. You know, so I started reciting it and researching it, and learning about the culture and being a part of the culture. And once it wraps its arms around you and accommodates you, then you're in. And that's the first time, genuinely, apart from being around my parents, in my entire life, that I felt truly accepted. So
That's good. That is a thing that made you feel accepted, because it could have gone
yeah,
a different way.
that's the message. Skateboarding made me feel accepted at 11 years old. Like I say, it taught me everything. Everything that I know comes and stems from that culture. And I love it just as much now. I love teaching it and coaching it, developing youth and young people, getting them engaging in skateboarding and being proactive and being outside, most importantly, trying something that's, yeah, it's dangerous, but if it's done in the right environment, can change your life again.
No, absolutely. That's brilliant, mate. I mean, like I said, it's good that you've really have found that, and that's what we want for everybody. To be fair, okay. So, I mean, you are a busy guy, and you've been obviously doing the skateboarding. You've been doing the speaking, all that. Are you doing anything at the moment? Are you got anything coming up at all? Any talks or?
Yeah, so I will mention briefly, we are still on the You, Me and ADHD Part 1 tour, because basically it was put together for ADHD Awareness Month last October.
Yep.
And it kind of overspilled because there was such an influx of people getting in touch. Now, the talks are all done voluntarily. I don't want to make any money out of ADHD. I'm not interested in making any money out of ADHD. This thing has been a hindrance to me, but it's also helped me with a lot of things as well. But I would not want to see any other young person go through the things that not just I've been through or you've been through, but what we've been through collectively as ADHDers. I wouldn't want to see it. And I think there's a lot of people falling through the cracks. And like I say, it's following them everywhere they go, from adolescence into adulthood, and it's having a detrimental effect on their lives. So yeah, it's all about sort of educating and opening people's minds up from an early age to what neurodivergence are and what ADHD is. So yeah, we've got quite a few more talks to do. That's just part one. And now I'm getting inundated with schools and colleges and alternate education hubs and community groups wanting me to do more talks this coming ADHD Awareness Month 2026, which we're going to do, but we're just sort of piecing together how we're going to do it. So if you keep posting on all my socials and things, you'll see an update regarding that. I've got the festival season coming up, playing lots of festivals this year.
Awesome.
And I've also dipped back into acting, which I love. And I'm playing some roles and some characters that are not like me whatsoever. So again, that's a nice challenge, bit of discipline there, coming out of my comfort zone to see where it can go. But it's all exciting stuff, all positive stuff. And then I'm a very busy family man. I'm getting married this year, which I'm very excited about.
Awesome.
Found love. Relationships have been incredibly difficult for me having ADHD, but I found love with the right person. She's accepting, she's accepted me, and I accept her. And that truly binds us together, that acceptance. And again, it's about finding the right partner for you, isn't it? If you're always somebody that doesn't truly accept who you are or wants you to be like something else or someone else, then it's probably not going to end well. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking from personal experience then. So
yeah. When you find the one who accepts you, then it's an incredible feeling.
of course it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna on the podcast. I'll put your links down, so people can find you on social media. They can follow you, ask you a question about what's going on, what you're up to, where are you next in your talks, and your websites and all the rest. I'll do that for you.
Thank you very much.
That's okay. Is there anything else you would say? Is it one thing that you could say to the kids, the young people out there, that will help them to go down the most positive route possible and think more positively about everything? What could you say would inspire them?
I think it goes back to what I originally said about my skateboarding. It doesn't have to be skateboarding. It can be anything. It can be art, it can be music, it can be bricklaying, it can be construction, it can be gardening, it can be agriculture, whatever it is you're interested in, whatever occupation you want to pursue, whatever hobby you have. If you can really genuinely find that hyperfixation, only you know what it feels like inside your brain, inside your heart. If you can find that and develop that and work with that, then it can unlock a lot of doors. Don't worry about what the education system thinks or says about you. That doesn't mean anything really. Yeah, I'm not saying don't go and try. Everybody should go and try. We should all try our best. But don't be too disheartened if you come out of school or college and you haven't got the grades that you have set your heart on. Because that isn't the end of the road. I think a lot of people get sort of it's quite a get kind of deceived really. They kind of get hyperfixated on the wrong things rather than the right things. And I think it's all about hyperfixating on the right things and not the wrong things. Find an environment that works for you. You know, everybody knows what works best for them and what doesn't. Strengths and weaknesses. Listen to your subconscious. This is the quote I'm going to leave you on. Always follow your heart and listen to your instincts, because we all have them for a reason. And if your instincts are telling you to do bigger and better things and you want to pursue something, then go and try it. Don't hold yourself back. Don't wait till it's too late. Just go for it. 110%. Put yourself into the situation. I'll also say if it doesn't scare you a little bit and you're not feeling slightly anxious about it, then it's not worth doing. It's not important enough. You know, it needs to frighten you a little bit, you know, take you out of your comfort zone to excite you and stimulate you as an ADHDer. And there's still many things that I want to achieve, want to see, want to do, things that terrify me, but I'm going to have to do them. So, yeah, just go for it. That's all I've done. And it's worked, you know. Obviously take a step back, maybe think about the consequences as well, but just go for it.
Awesome. Great words from you, mate. Seriously, it's been really nice having you on and having a chat with you. That's kind of a lot for people to think about. And I think you've said some really amazing things. And I think what you're doing with the talks, going to the schools, I think that's incredible. I think there should be more people doing it. Don't want to take anything away from you, but there should be more people
No, of
doing it.
course not. And
You know,
do
but
you know what? I don't feel like that either. I'm hoping people will see what I'm doing, obviously, but it will inspire people to be more transparent, more open, more honest about their journey. And if their journey has had achievements, even if it hasn't had achievements, share it, because we can all learn something from that.
absolutely,
I'm not scared to lay my life bare. I've been judged my entire life. I'm still judged now. I'm still misunderstood now, you know, but I'm more accepting, self-accepting of myself. But I accept other people not for what they could be, but for who they are and how they see it and perceive it. So yeah, I feel like that resilience that skateboarding has taught me as is embedded into my everyday life. And it's made me a tougher person, that's for sure.
that's awesome. I mean, you're an incredible young man. I'm so glad that you've come on. We've had this conversation. You're doing brilliant things, and it was really, really, really good to talk to you and to hear your story and what it's all about and what you're doing and your thoughts. So for everyone, really, if you want to get hold of Ryan, you can. I'll say get all the links on the podcast. By all means, follow him, follow his story, get in touch, and or even get in contact with the podcast, and let us know your thoughts about the episode. But for everyone, really, who are listening, as always, be good, be kind, and remember, you're not alone. Thank you.
Darren, thanks for having me on, and best of luck with everything that you're trying to do.
Bless
Well
you, mate.
done.
And you, mate. And you.
Thank you.